I'm your host, Peter Komendowski, and welcome to Surviving Bad, where we explore Iowa stories of survival, hope, and inspiration. It's said that it's better to learn from someone else's struggles and transformations, but many people protect their past like a secret. Occasionally, a person is brave enough to share their life and their stories in the hope that someone facing challenges can learn from them. Today's guest, Jared, is a person with a story to share that is life-changing and cause for inspiration. Let's get to know him. Hi, Jared. Welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
Good. Hey, tell us a little bit about yourself and sort of why you're here.
Okay, well, I grew up in Chicago. I'm in a good home with three brothers and a mom and a father. Towards my teenage years, I found myself getting curious, just different things out there, and I was attracted to sort of a rougher crowd in Chicago. That's usually gangs. So I was early on initiated into one of the larger gangs in Chicago, and that changed. It changed everything. It changed the way I dressed, the way I talked, the things I was interested in. And I kind of became this different person that family and friends didn't recognize. And later on in life, I didn't recognize. So.
Now, can you remember a time when that sort of corner was turned? Like what grade were you in? How old were you when you first got your first taste of this life?
I think I was 13. It was the 8th grade going into high school summer. I had free time on my hands. I had a little more opportunity to move around and trust from my family. So I started dipping and dabbling in gang activity late at night, and it consumed me.
Now, what was your life like at that point? I mean, so that was 8th grade. Then you went.
I tried as hard as I could to live a double lifestyle, to where I would go home and smile and do my chores and go to church with my family on Sunday. But then at day and night, I was ripping and running with the guys. And I got found out pretty quick. It was my freshman year in high school. I was expelled for a gang-related fight. And that's when kind of the disguise was ripped off me. And I was exposed to my friends and family. So,
well, and obviously you have a story to tell that means that at that point things didn't go so well. Correct. You had to make a choice between the gang life and the family.
I did, and I chose the gang life ultimately. I was a pretty promising football player and had good grades and had opportunity at a great high school, and I chose the gang lifestyle and I kept choosing the gang lifestyle.
Where'd that end up taking you in terms of drugs and alcohol and other things? Was that something that was a part of that lifestyle?
So socially, drugs is a part of that lifestyle. And I liked the drugs, and I liked the way they made me feel, and I liked the way I acted when I was on them, and people around me seemed to like it. There was one drug in particular, PCP, that some of the older guys would pass down to us when we would do certain things, and it made gang activity, criminal activity, whatever you want to call it, a little easier, and it almost made it feel like a bad dream. So it was an escape from reality and the things we were doing. So.
Now, obviously, some things went really south, went really bad.
Pretty quick. About my sophomore year, I was deeply involved in the gang, and that gang is called the Vice Lords in Chicago. And my parents, they couldn't control me. I had men my dad's age coming to pick me up from the house, and at that point, I was more bold about it and wasn't really trying to hide because everybody knew. And there was a war going on in the streets, and my life was being threatened as well as I was threatening other people's. And my parents were were scared, and I backed them up against a wall, and they sent me to a juvenile. They call it a boarding school. It was a program for wayward teens, where I spent 2 years on and off. So.
And after that 2 years, did it work?
It didn't. So after that 2 years, and it was spread out from Marion, Indiana, and then in the summer there was a Canada program. So we went up to Canada, and then I actually went to the Dominican Republic where I spent a year, and they worked us. And there was some abuse that went on. There was some things that kids shouldn't have to endure, and I kind of fed into it at I guess I adapted to overcome or faked it till I made it. But ultimately it made me worse. I came home 2 days before my 18th birthday and moved out within the week. And that's when I relocated to Indiana, and my life of crime and serious drug abuse began there. So
we're going to take a short break, and we'll talk a little bit about that and finally get to the point to figure out how you got yourself out of that cycle too. Yes, so when we come back after a short break, we'll continue the conversation with Jared. See you after the break. You don't want to miss this.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Every second, 127 new devices connect to the internet. You can feel it happening. Our digital world expanding with every breath. We're entering a whole new era of connectivity, and Mediacom will be ready to power it with one of the nation's first 10G platforms. We'll be bringing you more speed, more capacity, more security, and the power to do more than you ever dreamed possible.
Welcome back to Surviving Bad. We're talking about lifting up one's life. Life can be tough, but people like our guest, Jared, can be tough and resilient too. Jared, you turned a heck of a corner at 18 years of age. But when did the bottom really fall out? When was it at the worst? What really woke you up?
So through my 20s, I got married young. We had 5 kids. And in that, I spent 8.5 years incarcerated due to my crack cocaine and my heroin use. And after my last prison sentence, which was 2014, I came home, and my addiction, after not using for 5 years, my addiction was the strongest it had ever been. I would disappear from home for months at a time and pop in and out, and the consequences didn't really hit me until probably about 30 or 31 years old. And my youngest son was just born, and I had left home, and I was living in a hotel with nothing and no one, and realized I had abandoned my family.
What did you do then?
I reached out to my wife, who picked me up and took me to a detox, and she had told me about a place called Adult Teen Challenge, and this was in Chicago. So at that point, I was willing to do whatever it took to change and to save my family. So I agreed to go. I went there, where I spent 8 months, and it was what it was. I learned quite a bit. I got introduced to Jesus on an intimate level, but I left early, and I returned to doing pretty much the same thing that I was doing before. Yeah.
Now, how did your wife, was your wife with you all through the time you're incarcerated and everything else?
Oh yeah, my wife, she's amazing. She didn't miss a beat. Yeah, I don't deserve her, didn't deserve her. She definitely stuck with me through some times that I wasn't trying for myself, so I don't understand why she tried for us.
Can you remember some of the conversations you had with her? I mean, this sounds like the most patient woman in the world.
Oh no. It wasn't. She was patient, not outside of phone calls and talks with me. She was harsh. She gave it to me in the raw, and she held her line. She protected the kids at all costs, and she didn't budge on that. She demanded change from me, or ultimately they would leave. So when I did return back to my addiction and stuff like that, she found another teen challenge in Iowa, and that's how I ended up in Iowa in September of 17.
Now, did you have the 5 children, and were you incarcerated while you had 5 children, or did you have some since then?
So since I got out in 2014, we've had 1,
Okay.
and his name's Malachi. The other 4 were previous to my incarceration.
So they've sort of lived through this with you as well.
My kids have seen and heard things that no kids should have to, and I'm responsible for that. Yeah.
Let's step back a little to something. Okay, you got into the system. I presume you got arrested more than once. What did the system do to help you with your addiction?
Ooh.
They had done nothing. I don't know. Did they do anything?
So they do offer some substance abuse classes in prison, and I took the class. But they also offer a time off your sentence when you complete the class. So I wasn't trying to get off drugs, and most of the guys weren't. We were trying to get time off our sentence.
So that, because I know that Life's Changing now in prisons are taking a stronger look at providing the kind of interventions and treatment. Do you think that the drug use had a lot to do with staying in that gang life and getting and put into prison?
Oh, 100%. Both my crimes were violent robberies, and they were to get more drugs. There was no other reason for them.
Now, where was your mom and dad throughout this process? Did you get a chance to talk to them very much?
So both my parents, my father's a doctor, my mother's a social worker, and the lifestyle, and they're both strong Christians. The lifestyle I was living completely contradicted theirs, and they were not supportive of my choices, and therefore we had very little contact. They were there if I wanted to change or if I wanted help, but not for anything else.
Are they proud of you today?
Absolutely, beyond belief. They are so proud. I just had a conversation with my dad last week, and he was just telling me how proud he was of me and amazed at what God has been doing in my life. So it's definitely a restoration story.
All right, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to take a closer look at Jared's transformation. See you after the break. You don't want to miss this.
While a lot is changing in our world, at Mediacom, our focus remains the same, making sure you have the fastest, most reliable connection possible. During this critical time, we know your needs are changing. You may be working or learning from home, relying on telemedicine, or finding new ways to keep everyone entertained. If you need more speed, call or go online, and Mediacom will double your speed immediately for as low as $10 more a month for 1 year. Today, more than ever, you need fast, reliable internet. At Mediacom, we want you to know you can count on us. Our fiber-powered 100% gigabit technology network was built for the future. We have enormous capacity and power, and 99.99% network reliability. So even though these are uncertain times, we're prepared, and you can be certain we'll keep your world connected.
Welcome back to Surviving Bad. I'm your host, Peter Komendowski, and we're talking with Jared about his life, the challenges he's faced, and the hope and inspiration he has embraced. Jared, times got bad, but you were working at it, and your wife brought you back to Iowa, or to Iowa.
Yep.
For a specific reason. Tell us a little about that process, how that happened, and what you found when you got here.
So I showed up to Adult and Teen Challenge of the Midlands in September of 2017, and I was broken. Life had run its course. I figured I had no hope of freedom from addiction. I had no hope of a marriage or a relationship with my kids or my parents. I had nothing. I took the long bus ride from Chicago to Iowa, and I showed up here where I was greeted immediately with open arms and love and encouragement. People didn't look at me like a criminal or a crackhead or any of the things that I had identified with for the past 20 years. And I had to, even though I was greeted with those warm and good feelings and emotions, I had to work. I was dropped off here, and I wanted my life back. And I had a group of guys that were living it out, how they got theirs back, and I had to be open-minded and have an open heart about things that I had never experienced. And I had, go ahead.
How'd you get on the bus? I mean, that's a big jump to come to Iowa from Chicago. I went through that once in my life. It's a big.
I got on the bus because the same program I was at in Chicago, the director was actually a student here. And he told me if I really wanted life change, that I needed to come here. And I took that step of faith.
So when you got here and they put you to work,
mm-hmm.
You know, we hear stories about things like withdrawal and this. I mean, you had physical and mental challenges to face. What kind of pressures and stresses did you have? Not just on the bus ride, but actually getting started with this kind of I presume that you're motivated to get your family back.
Yeah.
Or was death the other option? I don't know. I mean, where was your head at the time?
So to be honest, my head was there to get my family back. At that point, though, they were lost. They were lost, and I had to muster up the strength and rely on God to give me what I needed to move forward and to get my life back. Because without me doing it for me, people have said it, but it's true. If you're not doing it for you, it's gonna be short-lived. I had to figure out what was the root of Jared's issues that caused me to continue this cycle, and I had to break it. And I found freedom through Jesus and my walk and my relationship with him.
Did you feel, sort of a timeline? What were the nights like? The first few days and weeks of being in a strange place with all these goals, but knowing that there's an addict inside of you. I mean, what was it like?
Brutal. Long nights. I didn't sleep. Withdrawal played a role, but more than that, being sober and thinking about my mistakes and my regrets and wondering if I'd ever see my wife or hold her again or kiss my kids goodnight, it tormented me.
The people you were with there, the other people taking part in the programs, did you feel a kinship with them because of some of that? Did they share that in common?
Not at first. At first, I resisted them. I didn't buy into it, and they kept at me. No matter what I said, no matter how my attitude was, they kept loving on me and kept being available. And ultimately, they became Jesus in the flesh to me. They wouldn't let me close off. They chased me down. So,
did you ever think about leaving in those early days?
Every day. So you go from your schedule as an addict to, which is no schedule at all, find drugs, right? And you come here and it's 6 o'clock wake up, it's chores, it's chapel, it's classwork, it's work time, it's study hall, then it's bed, then it's all over again. And it was overwhelming.
Well, it's sort of like your life before you started with gangs.
It was, but that was a long time ago.
Long time ago.
Yeah.
Since you've been there, has your relationship with your wife stayed strong?
Oh, strong isn't the word. I completed the program over a year ago, and since then, my wife and I are stronger than ever. We actually relocated our family from Chicago to here, and I'm on staff here now, and I'm trying to help guys find the same freedom I found.
That is amazing. And your 5 kids, everything going great with them?
They're here, they're loving it, crick stomping and catching frogs and snakes, stuff you can't do in Chicago.
You know, that's it's great for you to share all that. And I'd like to ask you after the break to share some advice. Preach. You have time to tell people the lessons you've learned and maybe things that young kids that would look up to you might want to know before they make some difficult choices in their lives.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to.
Appreciate that. After a short break, we'll invite Jared to share his comments and good advice. You don't want to miss this.
I don't know how we would have survived without Mediacom. We have 5 kids, my wife and I, and we have Mediacom for all of our internet and all of our cable services. So I'm stuck in my house, but at the same time, I'm connected to people all over the world, and it's been fantastic.
Thanks to Mediacom, I've had reliable internet to continue to work business as usual, that I can continue to provide for myself and my family.
Right now, we all feel like the world is in a standstill. The internet has played a huge role in allowing us to stay connected to our jobs and the kids' schooling online and finding fun and creative ways to stay connected with the ones that we love. We couldn't do it without Mediacom.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Today on Surviving Bad, we're taking a moment to talk about finding hope and inspiration. Our guest, Jared, has some words of wisdom and advice that may be able to help you face your demons. Jared, I'm going to ask you a couple questions, but I don't want to give you free play to say whatever you like. But if you were a kid and you were going to give yourself advice, what would that be? If you go back in time and talk to that young Jared before he went this way, what would you tell him?
I would tell Jared to listen. I would, the people that cared about me, that I knew cared about me, I rejected them. And I would tell kids, listen, if you've got somebody in your life that has been there for you through the ups and the downs, and they're telling you something, take heed, listen to them.
But would you have been able to listen? I mean, if you stood there, we all think about that. What happens that, because parents feel guilty that they did something wrong?
So I've actually had that conversation with my parents, and I wouldn't have listened. Clearly, I didn't listen. But if I could tell somebody something, it would be that for them to listen, because it would prevent years of pain. I embrace my journey. I believe that everything I went through, and it's going to serve a purpose now, whether it's to help one person not have to go through it or find a way out of it. I think what I went through was well worth it. So,
what are you sharing with the people that you find at Teen Challenge today? Are they also from all over the Midwest and the country? Or are they mostly from Iowa?
Mostly from Iowa, but we accept people from everywhere. Through 15 or so 28-day treatment programs, countless detoxes, my incarceration, I I encountered the secret to what people call recovery, but I don't live in recovery. I live in freedom, and I encountered the secret. And for me, that secret is living in community, having men that have walked things out before me, and they're walking them out now, joining them and being transparent in relationship with them. It keeps me right, and it not only keeps me right, but it keeps me progressing. It doesn't allow me to go a day entertaining any thoughts or ideas of doing anything other than the good things that I'm doing today. So,
what are the kind of I'm not saying you talk to yourself, but we all talk to ourselves every once in a while for motivation, for give ourselves a way to look at the world and strength. What are some of the things you say to yourself on a daily basis?
So I don't know if I so much say things to myself now, but I definitely reflect daily on where I was in comparison to where I am now. And that just destroys any thought of making poor choices. Because if we had more time, I could tell more stories, but I'm a miracle.
That's a fantastic thing. Now, one last thing. Your mom and dad.
Yeah.
What is life with them like today?
Hey, Mom. Hey, Dad. Today we're closer than ever. Me and my father's like I said, he was a physician, so he was busy, but he loved us. I rejected both my mom and dad and their love, but we talk weekly, sometimes daily. The trust is being rebuilt, and they're extremely proud with what the Lord's doing in my life today.
So that process you've been through here in Iowa has really healed some big hurts in a good way.
In an unbelievably good way. I could never have imagined that my life would be what it is today.
Well, God bless you, and thank you very much for sharing your story on the show. And thank you all for joining us today. You can go to our website, healthyiowa.org, for more information. Keep your eye on Mediacom MC22 for our next episode of Surviving Bad, where we explore Iowa's stories of survival, hope, and inspiration. On Mediacom MC22, your local programming leader.